In this lesson, you will learn about the goals of mindfulness, what mindfulness is, and what we define as mindfulness skills, and what mindfulness practice is. Mindfulness is a practice that orients you and brings you where you are. It takes away the noise of mindfulness. So many thoughts, so many meanings, so much judgment, so much assumption, so much comparison. Our minds are at work constantly. But is the work that they are doing helpful? Does it support us being our best selves, centering ourselves, or grounding into what we need to do and how we need to be to have what we want? These are questions that I want you to think about without thinking too much. It's important to ask yourself if what you think about and what you see around you is an objective truth. We have a lot of opinions, and our thoughts love to make up new opinions and new meanings. But what if we could just stay centered in truth? There are three main goals. The first is to reduce suffering and increase happiness. Suffering can be pain, tension, or stress. Suffering can be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. We want to identify what suffering is necessary suffering and what suffering we create for ourselves, often through overthinking. That causes a lot of unnecessary, self-inflicted suffering. The research proves that mindfulness has a positive effect on increased emotional regulation. Mindfulness also increases the activity of the brain regions associated with positive emotion. One of the ways I like to point that out is we tend to use our thoughts to predict what the worst possible outcome might be, to protect ourselves from what negative things might happen. We could just as readily use our minds to create fantastical scenarios where everything in life is in order and everything is wonderful. Both are extreme, and neither is based in objective reality. It's all made up. Can you see how mindfulness could then decrease depression and anxiety? It can also decrease distraction or rumination, especially in our thoughts and behaviors. Mindfulness could also decrease anger and emotional irritability, confusion and cognitive disorganization, and even cardiopulmonary and digestive issues. When I work as a dietitian and meet a new patient who has some sort of irritable bowel syndrome, I ask them right away whether or not they experience anxiety. The truth is, we have an extraordinary number of nerve endings, end to end, in our digestive tract. So as much as it can be related to something physiological or food, it is also, most times, psychosomatic. Reducing our anxiety through mindfulness can improve the way we digest and tolerate food. Mindfulness can also help us reduce pain symptoms, both the pain itself and the suffering from coping with chronic pain. In general, what we resist persists. That doesn't mean that someone is making up or causing their pain. It means that if you're focusing on it and worried about what might happen and how horrible it is for you, it deepens. Mindfulness also increases our sense of well-being. It improves immune function. If we aren't suffering and causing excess stress in our system, the body can combat the things that cause anxiety and cause upset in our system. Remember when we looked at the Abraham Hicks ladder and there were 22 rungs? Well, that top rung, number 1, was joy and happiness. We want to increase our capacity for joy and happiness and our ability to find joy and happiness even in the most mundane and difficult moments. By reducing suffering and increasing happiness, we improve our physical health, the relationships we have, and our distress tolerance. You can hear that the other DBT skills benefit from that reduced suffering and increased happiness. When we get to interpersonal effectiveness, you'll see how your relationships improve when you increase your capacity to listen. I like to say listening for other people, for what they need, for what they want, and for where they are in their lives. Listening isn't waiting for your chance to talk or thinking about how you want to answer when it is your turn. Listening is for the other person. It's for them to feel that they have the space to work it out and that you are there for them no matter how they come about. That's much easier when we're in a space of mindfulness or no mind. When we get into emotional regulation, emotions are much easier to regulate when we are in a peaceful state. The next goal of mindfulness is increased control of your mind. I don't mean some sort of Jedi mind control. I mean being in control of having a pause and responding instead of reacting without that pause. So we can increase our ability to focus and have attention when we aren't wandering off into our thoughts. Mindfulness has you focus. What do you want to focus on? Mindfulness can also help us detach from our thoughts and images and the sensations we feel in our bodies. When behaviors are repeated out of our control, we are reacting. We can learn to respond in a similar fashion to similar experiences, but that takes discipline to practice and take that pause. The final goal of mindfulness is to experience reality as it is. Most often, the only question we need to ask about experience is my meaning that I am giving to what I am experiencing objectively true? Is what I am thinking about the person in front of me objectively true? Is what I say about myself objectively true? If it is not objectively true, based in actual fact, let it go. If I am being mindful and I am experiencing life and my experiences therein as they truly are, they are. And what they truly are, they are. It is what it is. Wouldn't it be nice to just stay present? Wouldn't it be nice to experience the moments, the seconds? Mindfulness has you learn to take your time, give yourself space, really engage with and get to know people intimately. When we suppress our feelings and our thoughts or try to avoid them in some way, we perpetuate them. Avoidance has no permanent effect on our well-being. When we avoid situations or events that prompt difficult emotions, they might temporarily decrease. But I like to say, if you put a lid on it, eventually the pressure will knock that lid off, and you do not want to be in the line of fire or producing that fire when that happens. You have to learn your triggers, but you also need to learn to be here now. Experiencing reality as it is allows for us to be present for others. That listening I spoke of is very important here. Sometimes when people experience reality, they have a transcendental experience. In meditation, this experience is called samadhi. It is a complete absence of thought and a presence of being. In Christian religions, that transcendental state is being in the presence of God. It's an understanding that God has you and that His plan and His path are set, and you just need to be. For those who simply believe the universe is running the show, that transcendental state is you letting it happen and feeling connected to that happening. By staying in the present moment, we get to acknowledge that we're good. Essentially, at our core, we are good individuals. As I said in the first module, how we show up is solely based on our experience, the skill sets we have, and how confident we are in our capabilities and our capacity to learn. Mindfulness skills are the specific behaviors that, when we put them together, make up mindfulness. Mindfulness skills allow for everything to be valid. The significance that you give to experience, though it may not be objectively true, impacts what and how you experience. Where you are at this moment in time may have some increased validity around things that aren't objectively true. We can fact check, but coming from the place that it is valid and you are valid and you are in a process which is also valid helps you stay here to work through it. Mindfulness is intentionally living with awareness in the present moment. That's different from automatic or rote behaviors. Mindfulness is participating, choosing, being responsible for how we show up in our lives. When we do these things, we don't judge or reject the moment. There's a skill called radical acceptance that I will be discussing in later modules. When we radically accept what is so right now, in this moment, we let go of the need to change things. We understand what we can change and allow it to be true that in this moment, there are things we cannot change. Radical acceptance releases attachment. What is happening is happening. How you are feeling is how you are feeling. Who we and other people are being is how we and they are being. We don't have to make that mean anything. We don't have to stay in it and make it finite. Mindfulness practice is exactly that, practicing mindfulness. That can be practiced many ways. We will learn specific sets of skills, including wise mind, what skills, how skills, and other perspectives. I will also touch on mindfulness as a spiritual practice and the skillful means of balancing doing and being, and what we call in DBT, walking the middle path. Some mindfulness practices that are included in DBT and also used outside of DBT are things like meditation to focus attention, observe non-judgmentally, let go of intellectual analysis, letting yourself go to a space where you can say, I don't know, and allowing that to be the access for you understanding. We also learn, when we meditate, to carry that practice into our daily life, making things like doing the laundry or washing the dishes or walking the dog, all meditative practices. In Christian religions, mindfulness practice is prayer. Prayer that centers you, prayer that has you capable of listening and receiving and learning about who you are and what kind of guidance you have, and learning to trust that center. There's also mindful movement. Mindful movement would be choreographed dance or technique, martial arts, walking or hiking with focused attention, a walking meditation you might listen to. Ritualistic music making is also mindfulness. An example of this would be participating in a drum circle. Mindfulness is a wonderful set of skills that you have to practice and practice and practice. It can be very difficult at first, as we have what we call a monkey mind, always thinking out of our control. Focusing your attention is focusing your energy, and you have a lot of energy, especially if you feel like you're off the handle emotionally a lot of the time. You want to channel that energy into a direction that is supportive of you. You might feel distracted quite often when you start to practice, and that is totally okay. It's all part of the practice to realize when you're not very mindful and refocus your practice.